Okay, the next three questions are, 1, weren't humans originally hunter-gatherers who killed and ate wild animals to survive? Isn't that what all people did until a few thousand years ago? And if that's the case, then doesn't it mean that we're supposed to eat similarly? The second one is, explain what the Seventh-day Adventist health study was and what its conclusions were, and was this study an important study? And the third is, are there any negative studies on whole food plant-based studies that show, let's say, an increase in dementia? Sometimes I ask speakers off the record if there's any, what happens to people in the long run. And I did once in the lobby of this hotel have a talk with Gabriel Cousins, and he said that there were some plant-based people that did get dementia. And I said, are you concerned about this? And he didn't say like, oh, you're totally protected if you eat plant-based. He was saying that there was a concern. So are you concerned that we don't have enough long-term data, and maybe there's a concern about dementia that we don't understand? I guess I don't want to be confusing. I guess the question to you is, are there any negative studies on whole food plant-based diets specifically with dementia?
I'm going to go first just to get out of the scrum that's going to ensue. So I think the other two questions are a little fraught, but as Joel said, I'll go with veganism and dementia for $100 because the others are above my pay grade. So I think there's a huge glaring confounding issue here. First, we really can't talk about diet type and not consider diet quality. It is possible to have a plant-exclusive diet that's really bad. I'm aware of no evidence whatsoever showing any association between heightened risk of dementia with a high-quality, plant-predominant or plant-exclusive diet. Quite the contrary. Lower risks of every major chronic disease, lower risks of cognitive decline, lower risk of dementia. But the glaring confounding issue, everybody knows about the B12 concern if you're not getting B12 from animal sources. Not that it has to come from there. It really originates in the soil. This was nicely addressed in the Game Changers documentary. B12 does get into plants. Theoretically, we could get it there. Animals are the middlemen. But the fact is we're not getting sufficiently concentrated doses. B12 deficiency becomes particularly common with advancing age, because to metabolize B12 that we ingest, we need something called intrinsic factor secreted from the stomach. The stomach's ability to secrete intrinsic factor and make B12 absorbable declines with age, and in particular people who have what's called gastric atrophy. That combination of nominal levels of B12 intake, which were maybe just enough, and declining levels of intrinsic factor can lead to B12 deficiency. B12 deficiency produces a neurological condition mimicking senile dementia of the Alzheimer's type. If you detect it early, it's totally reversible with supplemental B12, but if you don't, it actually becomes a permanent form of cognitive impairment. So I think the only argument of concern about a high-quality plant-exclusive diet and either cognitive decline or dementia is the B12 issue. It does become more of a concern with advancing age, but provided you're getting enough B12, and with advancing age you're having B12 levels checked to make sure you're absorbing it properly, there's absolutely no reason why there should be any risk whatsoever. Good luck.
Okay, let me just say a few words about dementia. As David was alluding to, we don't have a quote-unquote gold standard definitive answer because no one has done a particular study to address just that issue. So the best we can do is make inferences from the data that we do have. And I can tell you, I've been to Loma Linda several times, both for conferences and also because I am Seventh-day Adventist. And there are not, elderly people laid out in the street like speed bumps because they're all demented. So I don't think there is a higher prevalence of dementia in that population, which is the longest lived population in the United States. So now, granted, they're not all vegans, which is one of the reasons, again, we don't have the definitive answer. But if you look at the things that tend to cause dementia, they are the same kind of factors that tend to cause heart disease, high blood pressure, strokes, and so on. So one may infer from that by avoiding those risk factors, you will lower your risk for dementia. But again, until we have, a certain body of accumulated data, we can't say for sure. But I can tell you, I'm putting my money on a plant-based diet.